It's April 20th, 2023. This is Roqe. Well, hi there. Welcome to episode 257 of Roqe. Hey world, don't forget the political prisoners of Iran. I'm Jian Gomeshi. Hello to you from Toronto. Salam dostan aziz. Durud bar shoma. Hey world, don't forget the political prisoners of Iran. You see, as some protests have died down and executions are less in your face, you may be mistakenly thinking that peace or improvement has taken place. Somewhere in the regime propaganda about prisoners being pardoned, you may not have guessed that the mullah's resolve has actually hardened. Hey world, don't forget the political prisoners of Iran. Oh, we know about some of those who've been tragically locked up and thrown into solitary. We worry about the conditions of Tumaj and Nargis Mohammadi. But let's not forget that this is a daily occurrence. The arresting and jailing and torturing and terrifying of Iranians who've only committed the apparent sin of expressing their opinion or dissent with this regime continues to grow. This is ground zero of the authoritarian hook. This is the top of the list for the totalitarian playbook. Quash anyone who disagrees, put them in jail and keep them on their knees. The more the eyes of the world turn away, the more latitude there is for atrocities by the Islamic Republic every day. Hey world, don't forget the political prisoners of Iran. Just today, another prominent journalist, this time Kayvon Zand, was detained for allegedly working with the regime's enemies. He was set to address a conference in Clubhouse called Dialogue to Save Iran. Now authorities have ensured that he's all but gone. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, at least 95 accredited media members have been arrested since the uprising began. Some have been killed. Iran is officially the worst country to be a journalist anywhere across the globe. Now there's a shameful distinction. And there is word today that the Iranian theater actor Hossein Mohammadi has been sentenced to 10 years in prison. What did he do? Corruption on earth through committing crimes against national security. In other words, he dared disagree with the mullahs. He was meant to be executed. The outrageous threats come without fail, and it's a low bar to be celebrating that an innocent man only gets 10 years in jail. Hey world, don't forget the political prisoners of Iran. Wherever we are with the revolution and toppling the theocracy, we cannot ignore these crimes against humanity. The more the eyes of the world turn away, the more latitude there is for atrocities by the Islamic Republic every day. So this is a message to all of us. Over 20,000 Iranian citizens have been unlawfully detained simply for protesting against this murderous regime in Iran. It's not acceptable. It's a horror story. And it's a reminder we need the Ayatollahs gone. Coming up on this edition of Roqe, from Tehran to Tesla, Farzad Mesbahi joins us from Austin, Texas, on lessons learned at Tesla and his new success as a YouTube tech guru, and Kayvon Zand on the Persian Parade this weekend in New York, plus Pegah and the Roundup. This is Roqe, episode 257, from Tehran to Tesla. Hi there, and welcome to you from our studio in Toronto, the Roqe studio. Hope you are doing well wherever you are tuning in from around the world on our ongoing mission to build a new audiovisual encyclopedia of Iranian diaspora identity. Hello, Pegah.
Hello.
Smart Pegah is here. We're going to do the roundup in a little bit. And Super P, Parissa Super P Sanjarani, the pride of Mashhad, has walked into the studio as well. Hello to you.
Hello.
There's a reason you're here. I'm gonna complain
Put
to you in a
on
moment.
the spot.
Yeah. Farzad Mesbahi joins us in a few moments from Austin, Texas. He's got an amazing story. He grew up an Iranian kid, grows up in Spain and then the U.S.
Wow.
Always obsessed with Tesla, the company. Elon ends up working at Tesla, becoming very successful at Tesla on a first name with Elon Musk, and then leaves after 4 years. He's a young guy. he gets to a high position, making a lot of money, leaves Tesla to become a YouTuber.
Wow.
And what do you know? He's become a very successful YouTuber. He does tech tips on YouTube and some car stuff.
Interesting.
It's a story of success so far. So Farzad Mesbahi will join us. I'm assuming if you're a guy, because he says his audience skews super male. If you're a guy who's into tech and cars and maybe Iranian, I don't know. I don't know if his audience is Iranian. Then you might know him. Do you know him?
Now I know him.
Right. See?
So,
Super
I mean,
P,
it's
you knew him because you
right?
did some research on him for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Farzad Mesbahi. That's all you have to say. Okay, thank you. And then later in the show, our friend Kayvon Zand, who is the genderqueer personality and musician in New York. He's going to be part of something on the weekend called the Persian Parade in New York. We thought we'd do a little promotion for the parade and speak to Kayvon as well, have him back on the show to talk about his role in that and his role. He's been quite outspoken during the uprising and has gained a big following inside Iran.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Kayvon's coming up. But first, we'll get to the roundup in just a moment. Super P, I'm still, as people can tell from my voice, still ailing a bit. And you're still sick, right?
I can't shake this thing. Whatever it was, this was some sort of super virus.
The entire Roqe office is an infirmary. It's basically like a wing of a hospital. And it all started with Super P. Super spreader Parissa.
That's right.
Who seems fine.
She is. She's better
How are
than
you
all
doing?
of us.
I'm okay. Thank you for asking me.
All right.
Jinjun, I helped you because you wanted to lose weight. And
That's true.
right now, look at you.
It's true. I have lost some weight because of this crippling sickness that
I
Parissa
didn't get
has
that symptom. How come?
No, maybe it's because I dramatically stopped eating out of frustration. Although it doesn't matter how much I lose weight, my face remains as round as ever. And did you ever bite your lip?
Yes.
Bite the inside of your lip? You feel
Or like the inside of your cheek.
How is it that I've lived for a few decades and I still do that? I bit the inside of my lip. So now I'm having trouble speaking. I was doing that essay about political prisoners and I could barely make the words out because everything's a disaster. Everything's a disaster.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
We're coming to you on rookmedia.com. It's there that you can link to all of our platforms: Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, CastBox. If you like to see what you're listening to on Roqe, you can switch over to YouTube and also Instagram. And I should mention, on Monday's show, Reza Pahlavi was in the studio for a feature interview, his first interview in English, like major interview. And
it was amazing.
It was. Thank you. I thought it was great.
I mean, I heard it. I saw it. It was just phenomenal.
He was very emotional too.
Yeah.
He cried 4 times in the interview.
I mean, what he was talking about was definitely emotional.
It was. His story is actually heartbreaking, but also beautiful in terms of his resilience and his heart. He's such a sweet guy, it seems. And so that interview is available on Instagram and YouTube in the video form and has over 250,000 views in 3 days, which is a significant amount. So if you haven't seen it, head over to YouTube or Instagram and watch the interview with Reza Pahlavi, the great songwriter, composer, singer, and poet from Iran, now living in Germany, small town in Germany. If you want to support us, you can go to rookmedia.com and become a Roqe member through our Patreon page.
That's right.
And you just press the support us button. You go to our you become a Patreon member at the bronze, silver, or gold level, and you get some special
perks.
Perks,
That's right.
Like a newsletter
behind the scenes, and lots more to come. Actually, as our patrons and Roqe members are growing, we're going to be engaging them more and more. So lots to look forward to.
You know, I was listening to my Arsenal podcast a couple of days ago, and the host guy, had a really sore. He was like, "Hey, how you doing? Right then, how you doing?" Or whatever. He's Scottish, I don't know. And the reason why his voice wasn't working is because he'd been on a bender, drinking all night.
Oh,
yeah,
not
and
a super
partying.
P situation.
No, I mean, with us, it's never that.
No.
It's not because we're having a good time. It's because there's a virus in the Roqe
We've
Media
been sick in bed.
studio. Yeah.
I actually thought you brought Super P because you were going to ask her about Tesla.
Oh yeah, right. Sorry, I was going to ask about that. We have Maziar was Monday. Farzad Mesbahi coming up. I never, Roqe Roham, Savvy Roham on our team drives a Tesla.
Yeah.
I never got into the mystique of Tesla.
Really?
I know it's extremely popular, and there's a great deal of virtue that comes along with Tesla and virtue signaling. Those who own Teslas, but I haven't got caught up in it. Maybe because I'm such a Mini Cooper guy, But have you? I mean, Pegah, you drive, what is it, a Rolls Royce or something?
Yeah, right.
This Pegah.
Oh my goodness.
Every time she turns up with a
Rolls-Royce.
new car, and it's like you've replaced Keon as the new
Oh God, no!
material.
It's not
I
that.
just wanted to say that she's traveling.
Oh, here we go.
So what, are you enamored of the Tesla? You don't own a Tesla. You have
No,
an Audi.
I don't. I have an
right?
Audi, yeah. But I don't know if you remember, I actually got my car not too long ago. And when I was looking for a car, it was in the midst of that craziness where apparently we were like short on cars everywhere in the
Right.
world or something like that. And I was trying to get a Tesla, but the wait was so long and I needed a car immediately. So that's why I actually ended up with the car that I have
Needed
now.
a car immediately.
Well, I did because I,
Sure.
between work and, things like that. So, but yeah, I would have liked a Tesla for sure. I
Okay,
believe
you're
in the
you're into
whole-
Teslas.
Yeah, I
All
am.
right.
I believe in.
And Super P, would you like to own a Tesla?
I love that, but I don't see it in my life. And I don't know. But actually, to be honest with you, never. I wasn't interested in cars, and I'm still not interested, and I don't have any information about it.
Well, that's fair. You should. I think the answer is, I'm not enamored of Teslas. That's what you want to say.
Yeah.
You don't lie in bed at night dreaming of owning a Tesla.
No.
Are the people of Mashhad dreaming of Teslas?
Spokesperson for Mashhad.
Yeah. You're the stand-in for Mashhad.
Yeah, it's like every time there's something with Mashhad, I have to respond. No, I don't think so. We don't have a Tesla
Actually, I don't even know. Are
Mashhad.
Teslas in Iran?
You know what? I don't think there are any Teslas, but pretty much every other car that you can imagine, they've made their way over, and I wouldn't be surprised if soon enough we started to see Teslas in Iran.
Right. All right. Well, so that's why I forgot.
That's why
what a
she was
great
here.
answer that was. I'm not sure. Okay, I never thought of it that much.
Well, she's not a car fan. That
that's
makes
right.
sense.
Not into cars, burying her face in her hands. Super, you're the best. Don't take my ribbing the wrong way. Okay, so let's do a bit of roundup before we get to Farzad. First of all, I guess I don't know. We talked about this on Monday, but I thought it was pretty big news that Reza Pahlavi and Yasmin Pahlavi went to Israel.
Yeah.
Partly to mark the opening of the Holocaust Week or Holocaust Memorial,
I think.
anyway. And there they are in Israel. They met with Netanyahu. So on Monday, we talked about this being a pretty bold move that would excite a lot of people and would certainly not be something that would be welcome news to some others. What have you discovered about how the Iranian diaspora or the people inside Iran are reacting to this?
I think everything that we talked about on Monday still stands true today. And in fact, I think what we kind of hypothesized on Monday has definitely come true. And if you look at, where we go to for public opinion, I guess, which is the Twitterverse, you're definitely seeing that divide. And you're seeing a lot of people, kind of say that they support this and they support the fact that Reza Pahlavi went to Israel and, how emotional it is to see him there, especially when he went to some of the more significant areas in Israel. I believe he went to the Wailing Wall. He went to, he went to a ceremony to commemorate the Holocaust. So there's a lot of commentary about that being emotional. And I think a lot of Iranian Jews are actually really moved by this. But then on the flip side, you have a lot of individuals who are saying, this takes away from the current revolution in Iran because it is such big news, and that we should be putting our focus on what's still happening in Iran. So there's a lot of commentary like that. But it still holds true that,
Wait a second. I understand somebody not liking it because they're not a fan of the state of Israel or something like that, but or at least I know that argument,
right?
Whether I understand it or not, but to say it takes away what's the argument that
a lot of people on Twitter are saying, or some people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but some people on Twitter have been saying, Persian Twitter. This is where I get most of my news from. They're saying that, with someone like Reza Pahlavi, someone who is part of the coalition and someone who has a background and things like that, it's big news for him to travel to Israel. And because it's such big news, instead of it amplifying what's currently happening in Iran, it's taking attention away from that and in fact just putting attention on his presence in Israel.
Okay, well.
So that's an argument.
Yeah. I mean, but then everything takes, you couldn't do anything. Can't play a concert in Los Angeles because that would take away from
but I think the idea here is that he's been kind of this spokesperson for the revolution in one way or another, right? He's been part of the coalition.
Certainly one of the spokespeople.
Yeah, definitely. And so with him being in Israel and focusing on the water concerns and visiting different sites and being there for commemorating the Holocaust and things like that, that's I think what they're referring to as being deterring from the current revolution. I don't know if I agree, but that's what's being said. That's one of the arguments.
I mean, to be honest, I'm surprised it hasn't been bigger news. Like I don't think I saw it in some like Iran International talking about it and stuff. I don't think I've seen it in any Western news. I thought I would have thought maybe isn't that sort of front page news of? I guess it isn't, or I guess maybe it's not. And it doesn't cut the editorial mustard for the New York Times or something. I don't know, but I kind of would have thought that it was a big deal. Even if they want to write a negative editorial or something, I would have thought this would be news. It's kind of.
See, here's the thing. I'm about to say something, and I'm sure I'll take some heat for this, but Reza Pahlavi isn't
a big deal.
A big deal. I mean, if you're not an Iranian, right? Yes, he's the son of the former Shah of Iran, and
that's a big deal.
That's fair, but. Yeah. His presence in Israel is not really something that's going to be front page news. I mean, right now, what's happening in Israel is probably more front page news than
There's
than
a
his
million
visit,
people
right?
in the streets, whatever. Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Right.
So
I was just thinking about the American administration, the Biden administration, and thinking maybe they're not fans of Reza Pahlavi, or they think that Reza Pahlavi would be supported by more Republicans or something, because it's also weird for the Biden administration to be quiet about this. But again, if they don't think Reza Pahlavi is a big deal, I mean, Shahzadeh it's not somebody that Joe Biden's thinking about, well, then fine, but Israel, major ally, son of the former, friend of the U.S. goes to Israel. The American administration says not a peep about it.
Nothing about it, yeah.
Did I miss something that Robert O'Malley, whose name is Robert Malley, but I prefer calling him O'Malley.
O'Malley.
Anyway, okay, so there was a split decision so far in the crowd. Yeah, I definitely saw some of both in terms of the reaction to the Shahzadeh's trip to Israel. The other thing that I saw that you and I talked about bringing to the roundup was this actress Pantea Bahram, who made quite a statement this week. I'm actually not familiar with her. Do you know her, Super P?
Yeah, I know her. She's a famous actor in Iran.
What is she in on TV or?
She played a couple many series and movies.
So tell us what happened with Pantea Bahram, Pegah.
Yeah, I think she's incredibly brave. Like Parissa mentioned, she's an Iranian actress. She's prominent in theater, film, and in TV series. And most recently, she's been part of a TV series called Pusta Shir, which has become really popular from what I understand in Iran. And this image of her that's gone...
Skin of the Lion.
Skin of the lion. I had to think
or
about
skin
that
of the milk. I never know when we're saying she or which.
I think it's the skin of the lion.
Yes, I think so too.
In this case.
So this image of her that's gone viral, it's an image of her in a public place with no hijab. And now I just want to clarify, when I say no hijab, I mean she doesn't even so much as to have a scarf on her shoulders like we've seen, over the last 6-7 months with a lot of women in Iran. So she showed up to this public screening of the series finale of Puseshir with no scarf, no hijab, nothing.
Photos being taken.
And photos are being taken, and now this photo has gone viral, as we've seen. And I just think it's such a show of courage, and it's such a testament to what we've been seeing women in Iran do the last 7 months. So I really wanted to talk about
She
this.
hasn't been detained yet.
No, I mean, this only took place 2 days ago, I believe, so we haven't
Because
heard anything.
the regime playbook, as I was inferring in the essay I just did, is in some cases wait a little bit until there's less news going on, and then, I don't know, in the middle of the night or somehow come and abduct the person and
That's
put them
always
in jail.
the worry when we see, brave acts like this. But she's been outspoken against the regime for some time. I think even prior to the ongoing revolution, I believe. She's always been kind of a voice. So.
If enough people do this, I guess.
Fingers crossed.
Anything else you got for the roundup?
There was one other thing I wanted to chat about. Ali Reza Pahlavi, who is a member of the Swedish Parliament, on the 18th, I think so, that was 2 days ago, he initiated legal proceedings against the IRGC, and specifically against the head of the IRGC, an individual by the name of Hossein Salami, I believe, for crimes against humanity. Now, the reason why this is significant is because under Swedish law, an individual can actually be held criminally responsible even if the acts they committed were not in Sweden itself. So this is why I think Ali Reza Pahlavi feels that he's in a place where he can kind of initiate this, and it would be a really big move if this individual was then convicted under Swedish law. Now, this happened 2 days ago. So what happened was, as of today, when they had the additional 125 individuals sign on, they also, I guess, added that this is also in support of Vahid Beheshti's, I guess, cause to have the IRGC put on the terrorist list in the UK as well. So it's now kind of echoing that as well, but a little bit different in this case because they're trying to, I guess, convict this individual specifically.
All right. Yeah. Every once in a while we talk about some event that's happening somewhere in the world, in the Iranian diaspora. We've elected to talk about this Sunday. There being a Persian Parade in New York City, featuring our friends Nicole Ansari is going to be involved in this, and Shahram Shahpare, and not necessarily, I don't know him, but Shaliza Muradi, I know she's going to be there. But also Kayvon Zand, he's going to be joining us in a little while to talk about his participation and what this Persian Parade is all about. If you're in the New York area, head down there on Sunday. I think it starts at 11:30 a.m. on Madison Avenue and 39th, I think.
So.
Thank you, Pegah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Super P. Parissa.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get to our first guest. My first guest today is an Iranian-American entrepreneur, a YouTube content creator with over 50,000 subscribers on YouTube alone. Farzad Mesbahi was born and raised in Cordoba, Spain. His parents were immigrants from Iran who left the country in the aftermath of the Islamic Revolution. The family moved to the United States in the late 1990s when Farzad was 12 years old, and he's been living there since. He got his degree in mathematics from Penn State University, worked as a program manager at Tesla for 4 years. Then, in 2021, Farzad made a decision to quit his job at Tesla and become a YouTuber. It was, as it turns out, a sage choice, as he has become something of a social media powerhouse. He's also been creating content related mostly to the future of technology and autos. And right now, Farzad Mesbahi joins me from Austin, Texas today. Hello, sir.
Hello, John. Thank you so much for having me. That was a very kind introduction. I'm living this sort of very strange life of doing what I love to do, and it's like very weird, and I feel very lucky and blessed, and it's like one of those things that I'm just riding the wave, man. It's like wherever I'm going, wherever the universe is taking me, I'm going with it. And it just so happens that I've been doing this YouTube content thing that I've just very passionate and I really, really enjoy. But I think getting to know people and getting to talk to people has been really the most rewarding and favorite part of it. So thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you.
Well, that's exactly where I was going to start. I was going to say, when you were a new immigrant kid of Iranian background landing in the States from Spain about 25 years ago, would you have ever imagined that you would become a popular media personality?
I don't even remember what I imagined. Honestly, it was so long ago. For me at that time, I was just struggling to learn the language. You know, when we moved to the States from Spain, I left. You know, I was born in Spain, and really, my parents did a really good job of sort of reminding me of my Iranian roots, my Persian roots. You know, I understand Farsi perfectly, but I can't speak it very well. So I'm sure I let them down there a little bit, but it's okay.
And I imagine you can't read or write either, right?
No. But I can understand her perfectly.
That's good. Me too. I'm illiterate, but I can speak it, which I said that on you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You were telling me about Spain.
No problem at all. Yeah. And so when I was growing up there, I built sort of a really close knit friends group. And then when I was 12, we moved to the States. So when I moved to the States, really my biggest challenge was just learning English. So learning another language and trying to get accustomed to to a new way of life. When my parents left, they left to, in pursuit of a better life and, sort of the American dream. My dad had family here that helped him get sponsored and all that stuff. So that was awesome. And we're always very grateful for our family members. But that was really just my thing. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, honestly, even during, going to school and even going to Penn State to college. I wasn't really, I went for mathematics, but I'm like, I'm studying math because I kind of like it and I think I'm good at it, but I'm not really sure what I want to do. And so being where I'm at today, I don't think about it too often, honestly. So this question is a good self-reflection. I don't even know how or why I ended up where I'm at, but I think the most beautiful thing about it is that I truly love it. And I get to decide what I want to do every single day when I wake up.
Well, let's unpack that one step at a time. First of all, if you're going to be bilingual, Spanish is a good one if you're going to live in Texas, right? So you've got that. That's probably that's a superpower for you.
It's great, especially when I'm ordering tacos, bro. I mean, they always make it.
Well, it's also the future of America. I mean, you know what's interesting is listening to you and watching you on YouTube. I mean, being a YouTuber requires a fair degree of self-confidence. You're putting yourself out there for all the supporters, all the trolls, the cyber world to see. It's interesting to watch you do this with such aplomb because you said you were actually a shy kid. Is that true?
Yes, very, 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 very shy when I was growing up. It was mostly, I'm not so sure I was too shy in Spain, to be completely honest. I think a lot of the shyness came from being very self-conscious about not knowing the language in the middle of my teenage years as my hormones are going crazy. And I'm trying to figure out how to talk to girls, but I literally can't, So I think a lot of it was formed around that, is that I kind of became sort of very shy because it's so very self-conscious, extremely self-conscious. And it wasn't until very recently, and I think this YouTube thing almost forced me in a way to battle that discomfort, to become less shy and just become somebody that's a lot more comfortable in front of the camera and people. And it's sort of based on this overarching thing that I've learned and other people have taught me, is that if you really feel comfortable with discomfort, feeling comfortable, feeling uncomfortable, it's a really good way of building skill sets. And when you feel that you're uncomfortable about something that you think there's a lot of value there, just lean into it. And so this YouTube thing was in a way leading hard into that mantra, is that, I am very uncomfortable in front of this camera. I'm very uncomfortable about speaking my mind on certain things. But it resonates with me very deeply, so I should do it.
One of the things that I observe about you, again, this is in contrast to saying that you were self-conscious, you're a shy kid. I've always, a mantra that I've always had, or something that I've always said to people, is to be a great performer, or even say a broadcaster, that the ones that are have the most resonance with an audience are people who seem comfortable in their own skin. Like even if you don't like a singer's music or something, you'll probably like them or have some kind of affection to them if you feel like they're comfortable in their own skin. That's what I get from you watching you on your YouTube channel. You just seem like a guy who's comfortable with who he is, which again is in contrast to somebody saying that they were self-conscious. What would you say? I mean, you're well-spoken, you're handsome, you've been successful. What were you self-conscious about?
Self-conscious about my accent, self-conscious about if I make a mistake, if I say something that's wrong, if I have, grammatical errors, the way I look, the way I laugh, everything. It's a very vulnerable thing to be. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this. You mentioned you've been doing this for a long time. I'm sure that there were parts of your career where you were like, maybe, I don't know, you tell me, did you ever feel uncomfortable getting in front of a microphone and speaking your mind, or was it always natural for you? Like for me, it's a constant battle. Every time I get in front of a camera, I'm like, okay, be yourself. Literally, be yourself. It's okay. Like, tell people how you feel. It's fine. It's completely fine. It's almost like using my vulnerability as a draw for the channel, because I know if I am vulnerable, people will like it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
maybe it will inspire other people that feel vulnerable doing things to go out and do it.
Yes.
But did you ever feel like that before doing your thing?
Of course. I mean, and most people I've ever interviewed who are extremely successful have some degree of, some great degree of insecurity or paranoia or anxiety or self-consciousness or all of those things. That comes...
Imposter syndrome, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld, at the height of his career, was desperately anxious about whether he was funny. I mean, these are things that we know. But there is something that I see in the digital space. There is the people who tend to do well are people who have somehow figured out who they are, or figured out how to present themselves as if they know who they are. I think that's always been a maxim in sort of broadcasting. I'm comfortable as a speaker, but I'm self-conscious about all kinds of things. The same things that you said, my looks, whatever, and the big nose, being Iranian, those sort of things were tough as a kid.
That nose is always the freaking
dude. My nose was when I was like 10 years old. My nose was this size. I was like a skinny, small. Like imagine, like I was like 30% of the body I am now, but with the same size nose. I grew into the rest of the body caught up to the nose.
Is the Persian curse, man.
The other thing about being a content creator, though, that would be different for you after working in the corporate world or working at Tesla, say, is it is a hustle. I mean, you don't have the security of a company behind you. You can't take sick leave for a couple of weeks. How are you dealing with that element of controlling your destiny but needing to hustle to keep things going?
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of me is, I think where I'm kind of lucky is that when I started this thing, I did it out of financial security. So it's like, when I left Tesla, I couldn't have left it in better terms. Those little bit over 4 years were honestly the best 4 years of my professional career easily. And I've been extremely fortunate to work at Philips as well, pet food and supply, before Tesla, where I had incredible mentorship and people that I worked at. But the experience at Tesla was insane, but it was also very financially rewarding. Plus some other investments that my wife and I made. So it was made out of, the YouTube thing was out of pure just falling into it because I loved it. But the more I'm doing it, the more I'm just realizing just how it's so fun, and being an entrepreneur and just loving building things and having a business. The part of okay, how can I make the best product possible, and kind of seeing how far it can go, and then seeing what sort of reward that generates, and putting that reward to work, that sort of the funds that come in, and figuring out okay, so what can I do with this to make it even better? I love that process so much. And that's what's addicting to me. And my wife and I were actually talking about this last night. We always talk about balance. The whole thing of balance is like, hey, are you taking time for yourself to be disconnected and not worry about what's the next video you're going to make, what's the next topic you're going to do, what's the next format you're going to try?
And what's the answer to that? Do you take that time?
I try my best. I try my absolute best. That's where my wife has been incredibly helpful for me in this sort of new chapter of my life, is bringing balance and reminding me that, hey, you can't do 12 to 16 hours a day obsessing over every single angle of this thing, especially doing YouTube and now getting heavier into Twitter too, as that thing evolves over time. It's like, you're a thumbnail creator, a title creator, a videographer, an audio person, an editor, you're a script writer. I mean, on and on and on and on and on. And I obsess about every single one of those things because I'm trying to build the best thing that I can. It's just the nature of who I am. So yeah, if I didn't have my wife, I'd probably be dead from overworking myself.
Kudos to her, but it's also self-regulated. I mean, it is a funny thing working in a space, especially if you're an A-type personality. It may, I'm sure you experience this. I experience this all the time with Roqe, where stressing about, we've got to get the episode out, and
Yeah.
nobody cares that much, I mean, yes, we have an audience that expects, where's the episode, but if it's an hour late, it's all self-regulated. Nobody's going to really, you're not going to miss the ratings period or something like network television if you don't get the YouTube video out tonight versus tomorrow morning. But you impose that pressure on yourself, correct?
I do. It's just, for as long as I can remember, I always want to be the best that I can be. It's a stupid pride ego thing, and it's something that I'm working with. I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I create a healthy relationship with this thing? I'm just naturally, I don't know if it's a competitive thing. I've been thinking about it a lot. I'm trying to be more introspective about it. Whenever I do find the times to sit down and relax, it's like, okay, so but why am I this way?
Right.
And the more I think about it, it's just, I go back in time. I was like this at Philips. I was like this at Tesla. I'm like this in YouTube.
And by the way, what does being the best mean? Does it mean lots of clicks, or does it mean you're a good husband? I mean, does it mean,
that's
a
great question.
Yeah.
That's such a good question, dude. And that's my problem. It's like, I'm trying to figure out why I'm trying so hard to do everything that I can to make this YouTube channel as valuable as possible, as impactful as possible. And it's because I think it's because I love it. Honestly, it's because I love it so much, and I love the feedback mechanism of the thing. And it could be just an obsession with the analytics too, and these are all questions that I constantly have to remind myself to ask, and I don't ask myself enough, because it's like,
and it's a dangerous one, because it's
none
of that is real, and to a certain extent, I mean, and some of it you don't even control, some of it is
so true.
It's you said something interesting a moment ago about talking about having the financial freedom to start this. I mean, one might see diving into the digital space as becoming a YouTuber as risky. It's a risky thing for someone to do, especially when they've got a solid career. So you're a risk taker. On the other hand, you had that financial freedom. So do you think you would be a YouTuber if you didn't have the financial freedom you got from working at Tesla? In other words, are you still the conservative Persian boy that needed the war chest to be able to, step out in digital media?
Probably, honestly, because in my head, so if I go back to my sort of mentality while I was at Philips and Tesla, like the Tesla opportunity I was so lucky to sort of have that, because it was a company I was passionate about. It was a work that was extremely rewarding that I would love to do. It was super challenging, and it was also very financially rewarding. So if it didn't have that financially rewarding piece, I really think what I would have done is like, okay, what sort of opportunity can I get that's going to maximize my ability to generate enough money to be financially stable, so I can figure out what I am and who I am and what I want to do. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would have fallen into YouTube unless I had that war chest, to be completely honest, because it is quite risky. I think it is quite risky, because you are putting yourself out there. I mean, who knows what the hell? I say so many things every day. Any one of those things could freaking destroy me, but I still do it because I'm like, I love it. Right? Yeah. So it's like,
let me come back to YouTube, and even I want to ask you about Tesla in a moment. But just,
you're a phenomenal interviewer, by the way. Let me give you some props.
Thank you.
You're very good at this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We're only a few minutes in, and you can tell, huh? That's good. Let's take me a couple of steps back. Take me to arriving in America. You, like me, are a product of the diaspora, but both of your parents are Iranian. How much do you self-identify as an Iranian?
I identify quite a bit. I am quite proud to say that I'm Iranian, and that, my background is from Iran, and my entire roots is Iranian. I mean, I'm 100% Persian, essentially. And it's very, very cool. Now, I think culturally speaking, I feel like I'm American more than anything, to be completely honest, because I came here in my formative years. A lot of the basically every opportunity that I've ever gotten in my adult years were in America. And I felt like all of it was merit based. It was because I worked my ass off, and I was able to get what I thought I deserved. So in that, I think I mean, could that have happened anywhere else? Of course, I'm sure. But the fact that I was here, that those opportunities were there for me to sort of capitalize on, and I capitalized on them. And so from that perspective, I feel quite American. All my friends are American. I love American food. I love the cuisine here. I love, going to national parks and visiting states and stuff like that with my wife. But I consider myself all three in some way, shape, or form. Persian, Spaniard, and American.
Well,
and
you can't escape the way you look, and Farzad is not exactly Tom Brady as a name, right?
Not really.
When you do a degree in math, I got that as the Persian part, and statistics. Then you work in a pet food company. How did that go over with the Persian parents?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they were just happy I found a job because when I graduated college, I graduated in 2009, and it was in the middle of the financial crisis we were having. So not a lot of opportunities out there. And with a math degree, I didn't really want to go back and get my master's and PhD. Honestly, I wasn't the greatest student. I was not the greatest student. I was just not that passionate about, I liked math. I'd found that I was okay at it, but I wasn't like super passionate about it. I had a crisis of passion, and so I think my parents were just lucky, they were just happy that I was able to find anything. And the Phillips pet food distribution company opportunity was kind of a lucky thing, because it was our neighbor right next door who worked there, and she knew I was looking for work. Like, I almost took a part-time job at a GameStop because I just didn't find anything that I was like, yeah, I want to work there because it sounds cool. And so I almost took that. And she's like, hey, come work with us as a temp for a couple of weeks. Our girl that does all the photocopying and the printing and the envelope stuffing and stuff, she's out on surgery for 2 weeks. Come on by. We'll pay you a little bit and then keep looking. And it just so happened that when I arrived at the company, they were like, hey, we need somebody with good analytical skills. Would you happen to know how to work Excel? And I'm like, I think, just let me try it. And then I happened to be good at it, and I found the work really rewarding. And then once they gave me a full-time job, and I started making my own money, it was actually something that I could make to live on my own. I'm like, okay, I see how this works. And I think I was very lucky to be at a company that took care of me, based on the efforts that I put in. Like, so freaking lucky. I feel like a lot of people don't have that fortune.
Do you have siblings, by the way?
Yeah, younger brother.
Brother. And how's he doing?
He's doing great. He lives in Austin too.
All right.
He's hanging out.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you folks still in Jersey, or are they in Austin? Where are they?
They're in Pennsylvania. Yeah, they're in
okay.
Pennsylvania. Yeah. But they're looking to move here in our area once they retire, hopefully in the next 2 to 3 years. So we'll be in the same spot again, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah. Well, concomitant with that pet job, I mean, it's great that you recognize that I think it'll be rewarding for your mentors to hear that you name check them when you do interviews like this. I've heard you talk about this on your YouTube channel, that what you learned from that company, but something that really shifts your life, it seems to have really shaped your life, at least this act of your life before you get older or old, is your time at Tesla. I mean, that is a big part of your identity. And it was interesting for me to learn that you were obsessed, even when you were at the Phillips Pet Company, you were obsessed with Tesla long before you became an employee. What, if you can do this briefly, what most captured your imagination about Tesla? I'm guessing it's more than just the car. It's the company and the ethic, right?
Correct. Yeah. For me, it was, I stumbled into Tesla when I was looking to invest my money in stocks back when I had a couple $1,000 in the bank account. I'm like, oh my God, I'm rich. I have $2,000. Let me invest it in something, right? And then I stumbled into Tesla stock, and then I started kind of like, I should probably learn more about the company. And then once I got a little bit more familiar with not just the car, but Elon Musk and sort of SpaceX and Tesla and Neuralink and Boring Company and all these things, I just found that to be very inspiring. And then when I was looking at other companies, I didn't find that same level of, that inspiration that you get from a company. I just didn't find that. And so I went deep down a rabbit hole. And then it sort of aligned with the time that the stock for the company skyrocketed back in 2013. And so I'm like, okay, so not only did I luckily find the right company to invest in, I also found a company that seems to be doing it for all the right reasons. And so I was like, okay, if I ever get the opportunity to work there, I would love to, because it has sort of that passion thing attached to it as well. It wasn't just like work at a place and make money and advance your careers. Like, do it because it's very important to you. And I was incredibly lucky to have that opportunity and do that. So it's way more than just a car for me. I think it's quite transformative when it comes to transportation and energy. And I think that I tend to really gravitate towards things that are that I find a lot of big passion in, that I feel like are going to change the world in some manner. And I just become obsessed with those things, and I'm like, okay, well, how can I be part of that in some way?
Well, I mean, it's like you willed it to happen, because then you become a product manager at Tesla. How would you characterize your 4 years at Tesla? What was it like working there?
Intense, rewarding, really long hours, very difficult. And honestly, it was truly the best 4 years, because I really got exposure to so many different challenges that I didn't think I could help solve or overcome because of the sheer difficulty and insane deadlines. But being surrounded by the most talented, smartest people I've ever met really kind of gave me an insight into what it's like to make the sort of what you thought was impossible happen day in and day out, even though it's like the dumbest little thing that nobody's going to care about, which is 70 trucks show up at your door and you have to figure out how to fill the warehouse up in 2 days so that the entire service network doesn't, basically collapse. And then there's just 50 of you and you're trying to survive. It kind of gives you a little bit of a insight into what it's like to solve extremely difficult problems. And I thought Tesla did a really good job of allowing me and really those around me to just do what they thought was the right thing to solve the problems, which really maximized innovation and ideas and throwing around ideas. It wasn't like a hierarchical, you do this, you do that. It's like, no, the best ideas win. Try everything, and it's kind of like, okay, it's okay if we mess up. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. And that was just
in its successful iteration. Is that about the culture of the company once you get there, or is that about the wisdom of the company hiring the right people who are all these like bright, prone to innovation types?
Such a good question. I've been pondering this myself. I think it's both in a way, but I think it's the first one. I think it's the culture more. Because the one thing that became a trend for me when I was working there was that, yes, they absolutely hired the best people, but 50 to 60% of the people that really became what we call the killers, like they were just out there just doing an incredible job, they came in as if it was another person that I would hire at, say, Philips or anywhere else. But because of that culture in there, being surrounded by that, hey, that's a good idea, try it. I think it really sort of maximized the human spirit of exploration and adventure and trying stuff. And then when you see those things come to life in front of you and you see it get better every single hour, every single day, I think it just lights a fire in you that says, holy crap, this is incredible. I didn't know a company would allow me to do this. I think that is probably 60% of it. And then 40% of it is that type of culture is going to bring in some kind of talent, right? Because now those people see it and they're like, holy crap, I'm going to, so it's almost like a flywheel,
right?
I think that is going to be studied in the future. I think how Elon Musk has built these companies is quite unique. It's like a startup culture, but scaled up to 100,000 people plus. And I didn't even know that was possible. I thought you get to 100,000 people, you're just hierarchy.
You're IBM. Yeah.
Exactly. But Tesla is it's not that. It's the largest startup in the world. And I can say that firsthand, it's wild. It's very weird.
It's really interesting to me, Farzad, that you left Tesla. Like it says a lot about your character. You're like a guy at that point. I mean, it's 2 years ago. You're in your early 30s. I would imagine most people, I would like to guess, would stick with both the safety and security, but also the success of just working your way up through that company and
Sure.
it's a pivotal decision that you make to leave the company. I mean, even I'm sure you made a shitload of money, and that helped enable the decision. But even so, that there's a lot of people who make a lot of money at companies who wouldn't dare leave because, why leave? Why leave, especially at this point in your life? It's not like you're going through a midlife crisis and you need to go to Greece for three years to find yourself or something. So tell me about that decision to not just leave Tesla, but not even leave Tesla as some sort of lateral move to the other winning team from the other state. You go and become a YouTube guy. It's a fascinating decision.
It's weird. I'm a weird person. I am a strange dummy. I don't even know, dude. I mean, if I think back to my decision making, so it was a multitude of things. So it was reaching financial stability was kind of like the thing that allowed me to ask the question of saying, okay, so you've been working for 10 years and you've been so incredibly lucky to fall into this situation where you worked for your dream company and you made a huge difference. You built this incredible network of people. You made incredible friendships. You've solved all these seemingly impossible problems, and you've built up this team that is incredible in there. So, and then you've reached financial stability. It's like, okay, cool. And then the thing that started to come to mind was, okay, so am I just going to be a Tesla person for the rest of my life? And at that, I started just thinking about them. Like, okay, am I going to work for Tesla for the rest of my life? I'm like, maybe.
Could do worse.
You could do worse. You could do a lot worse, right? Yeah. And the one thing about Tesla, it is a challenging work environment. It is 60, 80-hour weeks. Sometimes it's 100-hour weeks, and it's intense. It's an intense 80 hours, right? And after 4 years, I'm like, my stocks vested, right? So that gives me, which is that financial stability that I gained. You're there for 4 years or stock vest. And then it was sort of a transitional period in the company where it went from not being profitable to being profitable. And so I felt like I was a part of that journey of the company going from not being profitable to becoming profitable. And then there were some leadership changes that were happening at the company, that there were basically the old folks left, new folks came in, phenomenal people. Joey Berg, I want to give him a shout out just by name because he's a phenomenal guy. He really is. But I worked with him for 2 or 3 months because I'm like, okay, so I have financial stability. I'm questioning if I want to work 80 to 100-hour weeks, even if it's for Tesla, but it's for a company that I'm not dictating my own schedule. Even though I'm very passionate about the work, I'm not dictating it. So I feel like I kind of want to try that out for myself and see what it feels like. Is this the point where you're like, okay, this is my time. This is my time. I don't have any better signal than now that says leave, travel, do your thing and see what happens, right? And that's part of that risk taking I think I would have never taken unless I had that stability. And so that's really how I came to the decision. I was like, okay, so it seems like there's all these factors lining up for me that say, hey, you have to leave almost.
Good for you. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch in a world where people are, taking bullets for not wearing a hijab or something to say it's courageous to leave. But it's a brave decision. I mean, good for you for making it. You mentioned Elon Musk, and obviously I'd be remiss if I don't ask you about him. I mean, you see him as an inspiration. It's weird how over the last year, or I guess even just the last few months, he's transformed into this controversial figure that seems to polarize. I mean, I used to mention his name and everybody would just be like, "Oh, he's great." He was on SNL and everybody loved him, and now he's like Trump. It's like, the society divides on how they feel about Elon Musk. I mean, so talk to me about how he's been inspirational for you, because I would imagine you're still in the pro Elon camp, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that with me and Elon Musk is that he is very inspirational, but he's a human. Like that's the way I view him. He's a human being and he's not flawless, right? I worked at his company. I saw firsthand it's hard, man. Like it's hard to build companies that are transformational, and you're not going to do things perfectly. And I'm somebody who's been following his story arc since 2013, 2012, when I first invested in Tesla, because I'm like, it's probably responsible for me to kind of learn about the CEO and the company. And so I think what it is that he's really hasn't changed too much, to be completely honest. I just think the lens, like the eyes on him now it went from being maybe a few million people to the entire world, essentially, or the entire Western world.
Right.
And so when you make that, it's only the people that are interested in him to everybody because he's the richest person in the world, then the people that may not align with him morally or with the way he approaches humor or maybe his takes on his political things. I mean, he's just par for the course. I mean, that's the way I view it. He's par for the course. He's somebody who's always been outspoken about what he believes is the right thing. And he's just now tackling not just engineering, he's tackling everything. And I think folks that don't view him favorably, they don't think he's the right person to be at that position, or maybe he's morally corrupt, or he has bad political takes and he's an evil person. And they have every right to feel that way. Like, I'm not upset about people about that, but he's just a guy. He just happens to be very smart.
But how was he a role model for you?
He's able to build extremely successful companies at the same time, and he seems to be a real person to me. And I'll give you an example. So while I worked at Tesla, so he's the CEO of Tesla, CEO of SpaceX. He has Neuralink, he has Boring Company, and he has a reputation for not just being the guy that talks, that he walks it. I mean, I worked at the company. There's always, dude, Elon was working next to me for like the whole day yesterday. Dude, he was sleeping in the office, right? So he leads from the front. And then there were multiple situations where I sent him an email, just me to Elon, like 2 or 3 different emails, where I was like, hey, I think we can do this better. And then like the next day he replied, it's like, hey, you're right. Yeah, we should try this. This one's not a great idea, but this is right. And every time I sent him an email, he replied. I'm like, how come this freaking guy has the time to reply to me? And he has running all these companies. He has this great reputation for always working. So I'm like, okay. So, I mean, he's shown me that he's just a very hardworking dude that just happens to be at the upper echelon of society. And to me, that's inspirational because it shows me that there's a person out there who is part of, say, the quote unquote elite or quote unquote people that are at the top of society, but they carry themselves in a very normal way and they have controversial takes like anybody else would. You know, when's the last time you've been talking to somebody and somebody says some crazy stuff and you're like, whoa, okay, you're kind of crazy, but you're a guy, like, okay, that's very good. Or your friends, you're sitting down with your friends and one of your friends is like, oh, that's kind of crazy, right?
No, there's a number of CEOs I can think of who would play it a lot safer or keep the cards to their chest. He does say controversial things sometimes, I think, knowing that they're gonna ruffle feathers, right? Yeah,
I'll give you that. Yeah, but that's from my perspective. I just think he's just so atypical from that perspective and that role, and I find that inspirational. It tells me, okay, so you don't have to be this cookie cutter guy. You can just be yourself and you can just build stuff. I just think that's really cool.
Just as a sidebar, what do you think of this, the situation with Twitter? It's funny how there's this emerging mainstream media narrative that Elon Musk is destroying, has turned Twitter into a cesspool of arguments and whatever. And I'm like, really? You don't think Twitter was that before?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Twitter has suddenly become a cesspool, like, But,
yeah, I think it's people that were never on Twitter that came on Twitter. They're like, whoa, what is this terrible thing? I'm like, bro, you have no idea.
well, but do you think his whatever, all that magical sauce that he has that, has been so successful with these other companies, do you see that happening with Twitter, or is Twitter an aberration that is in fact not going so well for him?
I think it's going well. I personally think it's going well. Now, I'm biased, right? I mean, I should probably be the last person people are listening to when they think it's going well. I think people should do, if they want to see if it's doing well or not. But I think that the metrics that are clear is that it's had the largest user base ever. And my personal experience on Twitter has never been better because I am getting exposed to things that I would have never gotten exposed to before. And I like being challenged. I'm the kind of person that likes being challenged. Like, if I'm thinking a certain thing and I see something that's completely different, I'm like, wow, that made me feel uncomfortable. Why? Whoa, that I didn't like that idea. Why? I like going through that thought process. So for me, it's a really cool experience. I think what Elon Musk, and from my opinion, what he's really good at is building teams and creating cultures where people can flourish and do a great job. So from that perspective, I just don't see how Twitter won't be successful. I mean, the company is already, based on his guidance to his investors, is already basically cash flow break even. and it's going to be profitable here in the next couple quarters, with 1,500 employees versus 8,000, and the company's still around. Okay, so I don't know if that isn't a sign of success. I don't know what else is. So, yeah, I think it's doing a good job. I mean, the difficulty with Twitter, I think, is that it is a social media company, and it relates to sort of human emotion and human psychology, and it's a lot of it is political. When people share their opinions on Twitter or they share their political views, it usually generates a lot of tribalism, and that sort of tribalistic environment, I think, it's just very challenging. And I think Elon, one of his weaknesses is that perhaps he's not the strongest socially capable person out there. I still think he means well, and I still think he is a person who's doing this stuff for the right things, but sometimes he might be tone deaf. But that's just a weakness,
Well, the thing about him meaning well, you've talked about what you see as the honesty of his mission, that he isn't just about money in your view. And you believe that should be part of your path as well.
Correct.
That you want to be doing things not just for material gain, but that you have some sort of, I don't know if it's existential or some sort of global idea that you of helping the world somehow. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's an inspiration from an Elon Musk type character, right? And it's an inspiration from Blaine from Phillips. These are people that they're business people, but they're people that I could see them working. I could see Blaine working. I reported directly to the CEO of the company, the CFO of the company, the CEO of the company, and and this, a bunch of other executives at Phillips. And I could see, these are people that just really love what they do. And when I saw sort of Elon's behavior and the role within the company that he took and the lore behind him, I'm like, okay, this guy's taking it to yet another level. It's like, okay, the principle is, if you're doing something that's extremely important and valuable for planet Earth, the money will come. Just build the thing. Build the thing so that people are maximally happy, maximally hopeful, and they are in a place where they feel like, okay, I'm hopeful about the future. And that's inspirational to me. It's like, okay, so given my skill sets and what I do, what's the thing what's my thing? Because I still don't know what it is. I might be doing this YouTube thing and it's going well, but I'm just riding a wave. And so my guiding principle is just always make sure you're doing it because it's making you happy and that people are truly finding it valuable. And then build it in the most honest way possible, and then it will come. Whatever comes. Just do it in a very honest way.
I actually find it very the digital space is, to a certain extent, it's like when I was fresh out of high school and I was in university, I was a busker. Street busker means you go and play guitar and you sing on the street and stuff. And you find out how good you are because nobody fucking is going to stand and watch you or give you money if they don't think you're good. They just walk by and go about their day. And it's kind of like that in the digital space, except and add a bit of sensationalism, and if it bleeds, it leads, and all of that kind of stuff that we know people like. And so there's these decisions you have to make. There's, I don't know if you've faced them yet, but there's going to be decisions you make with your YouTube channel where you say, here's something I can do. Here's a video I'm going to do that I know is not going to get a gazillion clicks, but I think this is the right thing for me to do. And those are tough decisions. I mean, we do stuff about, the life in Baluchistan, for example. We did an episode, and I knew this is not going to be, we're just not going to get, but I really think this is the right thing to do, to talk about the Baluchi people who've been so involved in the current revolution and all that, And so these are tough decisions. How do you navigate those?
Such a great question. That's a battle that I have from time to time, because my guiding principle is do content that makes you happy. Right. So if I'm basically taking my day's work that I would do, researching my investment in Tesla, researching the auto market, researching the AI market, and I'm just instead of just letting it sit in my brain, I'm putting it out on a PowerPoint style thing, and then I'm like, okay, check out what I researched today, and I'm going to try my best to explain to you how I'm arriving to these conclusions. That's really what I'm doing. And then I'm like, okay, but the other thing I like to do is play guitar. So from time to time, I'll drop a guitar video. I'm like, screw it, I'll drop a guitar video. The other thing that I'm finding very fascinating right now is that my car can now drive itself. For the last 2 weeks, I haven't driven. My car just drives. I'm like, okay, time to talk while the car drives, right? It's just trying to be like, I think this will be really cool, and then just do it. It's not so much, wow, I think this is going to get me 100,000 clicks. Wow, I think this one's going to get me 200,000 clicks.
But there's no way you're a statistics guy. There's no way you're not watching those numbers like a hawk,
of course I am.
Right? Yeah.
Of course I am. Yeah, of course I am. But I'm more like, okay, so I'm looking at it. I'm like, what's the like ratio, right? Is it 99% like? Is it 99.5% like? And so from that perspective, it's like, okay, I found it cool, and they liked it. Maybe it's something I continue doing, right? But it's never from a mentality of, oh, this one is the thing that's going to get me 100,000 views. I'm going to do a video like this. Like, I'm not optimizing the YouTube thumbnail for clicks. I'm not optimizing the title to like be as clickbaity as humanly possible. I'm trying to like navigate this fine line of just be as honest as possible with your content, but then also make sure that it's the people that want to see it. But it's not like, oh, Mr. Beast, I'm going to get 200,000 views. I still want to feel happy doing my content, you know? And I could be lying to myself. I could be like saying all this, and then actually when I'm making the video and the thumbnail, I might be subconsciously making actions to make it go bigger, and I don't even know. But I don't know. That's the weird, trippy thing about creating content and doing this media stuff is like, it can sometimes be very confusing when you're trying to figure out of concepts, because you're like, okay, did I really come up with this myself, or was this influence based on everything else that I've done before?
Well, there's no, to a certain extent, there's no blueprint, right? It's a new world. All of these platforms we're using didn't even exist. I mean, right now we're talking on Zoom. That didn't even exist 3 years ago, at least not popularly. Like, I mean, so it's a new world. Who is your audience? What have you learned about who the people are that follow you?
It's 95% male. That's one, because it's very tech related and sort of, you know, it's things. It's not very, I don't know. It's just dudes like what I talk about, and I'm a dude, so I think that's part of it as well, probably.
Are you okay with that? Do you ever go, what do I need to do to bring a bigger female audience or something?
I think earlier on, I was like, man, I really want to be as inclusive as possible. So like, what am I doing wrong that so little women are watching me? But then I'm like, well, that's the wrong question. The question should be, what do you enjoy making? You know, like, what do you enjoy making? And then if people love it, great. Like, if people love what you love making, that seems like the best chance for success long term. Because it creates sustainability, it prevents burnout as much as humanly possible. Like, I've been doing this for almost a year and a half now straight. I've been dropping 5 videos a day, and I've been doing it for a year and a half, right? Wow. And just now am I feeling a little burnt out. I'm like, man, I've been doing this for a really long time. So I'm like, babe, I think we need to go on vacation. So we booked a trip to freaking Punta Cana in about a month. So like, okay, so that's going to be my break, you know? Right. So that to me proves that I am approaching this in a manner that is sustainable long term, right? And the audience is the audience. So I think, and it goes back to sort of your initial question, is that vulnerability thing, is like the honesty, is doing it because you love it. I think as long as I'm doing that, and the one video that gets maybe 5,000 views, that it's like, who cares? Those 5,000 people, I think, are going to be like, I hope, wow, this guy is like himself, because that's who I am. Yeah. And so I vibe with that. That's freaking cool, right? I want that audience, and I don't care who they are. I want people that enjoy doing what I love. And if that's really greedy and stupid of me to say, I don't care. I'm doing it for me. You know, I'm doing it for me. And if people want to come along with me, great. And so from an audience perspective, I just know they're all dudes.
Yeah. Well, you know who would really love, or who already does, but I'm sure would really love what you do? Iranian guys. I mean, Iranian guys love cars. They love tech, and they're obsessed with actually cars. You know, it seems. I mean, we've done a couple of episodes about this. What is the obsession of Iranians and cars? And the obsession skews male for sure. And
what is it? What is the obsession?
It's based on a number of things. We actually there's a full episode that we did on one of a couple of well-known YouTubers, in fact, who do car talk in Persian and in English, but have their audience is almost entirely Iranian. It's a lot of things. I mean, it's how status was measured by the kind of car you drive for the longest time in Iran, and continues to be, and it's culturally embedded for a number of reasons. But I was thinking, I mean, I don't know, and perhaps this podcast will help. I don't know how many people in Iran know about you, but there's a big audience there that once they find out about you will take a lot of pride, like because you're this Iranian guy.
That's very humbling.
Really, I think, and you're doing the kind of content that I know will appeal to a big part of the audience. I guess I don't know if your analytics show that it's hard with YouTube because it's not actually, you need VPNs and stuff in Iran. We can't tell with this platform how many people are. We know on the other platforms, say we have about a 30% audience in Iran. We don't know on YouTube because they can't. It's hard to count it. But you may have but we can tell from the letters or from the response and stuff. But I would imagine that that'll be a big audience for you as you continue to grow.
That makes me feel very. It's very cool and humbling, because that's it's like I often think about that too. Is like I wonder, and this is like part of my imposter syndrome that kicks in, because it's like you can't be somebody that people are going to watch and be like, oh my God, I'm inspired to do my thing now. Like, who the fuck are you? Like, I'm just a dude, And when you say that, like it fills me with a lot of like joy when I hear that. It's like there might be like a few guys in Iran that might find this kind of content cool.
No, there is a reason your channel is resonating. I mean, you're being very modest. I mean, you're really good at what you do. You really, when you pull out the little thing and you're pointing about, as you say, you're bringing us along with the research that you would do anyway, and the observations you're making. That's what the best analysts in the world do. I mean, you're very good at it. It makes sense to me that you have an audience that you have, and you're very accessible too. I'm not a tech guy, but I can watch your stuff and understand what you're talking about. That's you bringing me along, and I really appreciate that. Listen, man, I'm so grateful for to get the chance to talk to you, and I congratulate you on all that you've accomplished so far. Man. If I have a final question for you, it's funny because I was going to ask you, you've said, I saw this this Instagram live or something you did a few months ago where you said you're at a time in your life where you really want to figure out who you are as a person. And I was going to end off the interview by saying, what have you found out? But you've said a few times through the interview, you're still on that journey. So
yeah.
Let me ask this as a final question. What have you learned about what it takes to be a great innovator?
You have to be comfortable with the idea of trying a lot of things that are going to be stupid and putting it out there, and having as little ego as humanly possible to absorb the feedback that you're getting. And then you keep trying and you keep trying. But that is only possible if you're passionate about what you're doing. So you can't just do that with like, I think this is my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. There's no science behind this, but I don't think you can innovate on something like, say, oh man, I think couches can be so much better, but you're not really passionate about people being comfortable at home, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oh man, let me try this 1,000 different ways. You're gonna go insane before you go broke, right? But if you're passionate about something, then you have the foundation to say, okay, I'm going to do everything it takes to make it happen. And then at that point, it's just overcoming the fear of failure and the fear of people saying that it sucks, and the sort of like the ego hit of it sucking. And so it becomes more of an obsession about making stuff better and always trying. And the second you try something that doesn't work, you go back and you do a root cause analysis. Okay, why didn't it work, right? And it also involves asking the right questions. Like, why didn't it work? Were you comfortable in this position? Were you not comfortable in this position? How were you using this couch? Like, is it the color? Is it the material? Like, I'm just using a couch as a stupid example, but I think it's applicable to everything. I think the passion is one. You have to love what you do. And the second is you can't be afraid to fail, and you can't be afraid to continuing to try stuff over and 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 over again, and being very vulnerable to that process.
That's really valuable advice. The thing about don't be afraid to fail, it's so much easier said than done, right?
Yeah, it's brutal.
Because when you fail, when that's it's hard to lick the wounds and go, I'm going to keep going, especially when there's a bunch of people around you going, well, you're not good at this, or you failed, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And especially when you've had success in, when you've done what you've done, say at Tesla, and then you're failing at some video on YouTube, it can wreak havoc with where we started with that self-consciousness and all of that.
100%.
So
I mean, I'll give an example. I mean, real quick, I put out a video a couple months ago where I was analyzing GM's financials for the quarter, and I made a fatal error reading their cash flow statements. I was rushing through the freaking form like an idiot because I'm like, wow, all these things are pointing towards the wrong direction. I was like, oh, I can't wait to share this with the world because nobody else is talking about this, right? And then I misread one of the numbers. I put it out, and it was that number was completely false. And folks on YouTube that I have a fan base that loves to hate on me, and I call them fans because they have the best retention on YouTube, and they don't realize that they're the ones that are allowing me to take my wife out for an extra date. It's like I love it. It's like you guys are.
That's so healthy. What a healthy way to see your trolls.
but they came at me, bro. It was like a lot. That messed with my mindset a little bit for a few days because I'm like, holy crap, I'm a failure. But then I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Hold on, bro.
Meaning they said you're a fraud. You don't know what you're saying. Or
exactly. You're a fraud. You're full of shit. You don't know what you're saying. You're a scam artist. You're a Elon cultist. I mean, you throw it all. Tesla cultist, crazy person, racist slurs, you name it. Everything came at me. And I'm like, oh shit. Like that imposter syndrome kicked in like crazy. But I'm like, okay, but listen, when is the last time you didn't make a mistake? Like, think back to your time at Philips, think back to your time at Tesla, think back at other stuff that you've done, that you've experimented with. It's part of the process, bro. So what I did is I corrected the video. I was very vulnerable about where I made the mistake. I told people this is what I did to make the mistake. And then I moved on. And then a few days later, I was fine. I'm like, okay, that wasn't so bad. You just move on, but you have to go through that process, and that experience is very valuable because it teaches you that the earth, like, you're not going anywhere. The earth, the sun's going to rise again, and it's fine. It's just part of building that confidence within yourself, that even in mistakes, which is a very human thing to do, you can use that as a strength, because then you're like, okay, now I'm imparting that knowledge onto people listening to this, right? So this became a strength. This became a thing for me that I'm now a little bit wiser because I went through that experience. And so I encourage people to learn those experiences so they can be wiser to pass it on to the people that need to hear it. Yeah.
Farzad, it was great talking to you. Thanks for
man.
Thanks for the stories. Thanks for the wisdom, and thanks for the participation. I look forward to doing it again. I hope if you come up to Toronto, you'll come into our studio and we'll do it in person next time. That would be awesome, man. Thank you so much, Jian. I really appreciate you. This was one of the best podcasts that I've done, and I'm just so honored. And I feel like I don't deserve to be here, but I'm just so appreciative that you reached out, and I'm just really thankful. Thank you so much. Thank you, and to be continued. Take care of yourself. Thank you. Take care. Bye. This is Roqe, episode 257, from Tehran to Tesla. Remember, for all things Roqe related, you can go to our website, roqemedia.com, where you can also figure out how to support us by pressing the Support Us button, funny enough. Our next guest is someone we've had on the show before, and someone we love, a genderqueer nightlife personality, actor, and musician based in New York City. Kayvon Zand is known for their eccentric live performances and parties, as well as their established personal style. Kayvon was born in Wilmington, North Carolina, into a Persian family. Kayvon's the founder of Zandwagon. That's a model management and specialty casting company which represents individuals from a spectrum of ethnicities as well as transgender and cisgender people, filling a necessary void. This Sunday, April 23rd, Kayvon will participate in the annual Persian Parade in New York City. This Persian Parade 2023 is dedicated to the Women, Life, Freedom movement in Iran, the uprising, and right now, Kayvon Zand joins me from New York. Hello, Kayvon.
Hi, Jian. I love saying that together, Jian. It's endearing, it's fancy, it's bougie. I like it. Thank you for having me, Jian.
You can say
so exciting.
Jian. I mean, you speak Persian quite well. You're doing your North Carolina version of Jian with the Jian.
Well, actually, since you want to be correcting me, Jian.
Uh-oh.
Actually, you could be a little bit more forceful yourself with that, Jian. Say Jian.
Already get Jian. But
Jian.
I just wasn't expecting Jian John from...
I was whitewashing myself a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I wanted you to feel comfortable. But since we want to get Persian, honey, we can start speaking the Farsi and everything.
Kayvon John, I want to ask you about the Persian Parade, but first of all, there's been so much activity amongst the Iranian community in New York City since the uprising began in September. I lived in New York for a couple of years, and I never saw this many Iranians. Has it been a revelation for you as well, the amount of activism you've seen in the last 7 or 8 months?
I think that's such a fascinating point. They always say like the light at the end of the tunnel. This isn't the end of the tunnel because there's a lot of work to do, but there's definitely light coming in the middle of this tunnel. And it's fascinating because having lived around here for like 14 years, many people would say, oh, you're in New York, there's so many Iranians out there. I'm like, well, where are they? Because I'm not seeing them. But if they're talking about Long Island, that's a whole other conversation. Yes, there is a big Persian population out there that definitely is living that suburbia glamorous lifestyle. But you're right. Since this revolution, which it is a revolution, has taken place, there has been like this coming together and embracing one another. I feel like when I first moved here, especially in New York City, I felt like being Persian was secondary. It's like first you were a New Yorker and then you were Persian. Now I'm starting to see you're Persian first and then a New Yorker. And I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you've been really active during the uprising, and you posted something I remember in November that that resonated with me. But it was interesting because it's about survivor's guilt. And I was thinking about you and thinking you pretty much grew up the way I did in the West. You grew up in America. Do you feel guilty that you have not been in Iran fighting a more direct fight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. There is a lot of guilt. I think, especially in this past year since we last spoken, I've started speaking a lot to people in Iran through Instagram Lives. Kind of my life changed since then, and just speaking to people and realizing I'm sitting in a place of privilege, even to say like, oh, this is what should happen. We should be doing this. Even with me speaking about my hopes and beliefs, I feel guilty because I'm like, it's a lot different to sit and watch someone on the field as opposed, to getting tackled. And why am I making sport references? Because I'm not a sporty person at all. But to get serious, it's like, it really is a feeling of guilt because at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to mention as a spectator. And I know people probably don't like that because a lot of activists here are doing work. And, I guess there are certain amounts of risks, especially if you're really notable, people like Pantea Bahram and things like this. But I think there is a lot of guilt because at the end of the day, we do have privilege. And it's always hard for privileged people to first admit that to themselves and then to say it out loud. So it has been something that I've been training myself to do, and I'm still working on it.
I totally appreciate what you're saying, and I think a lot of people would appreciate hearing what you're saying, especially those who are watching and listening to us in Iran perhaps right now. But at the same time, I would push back and say, first of all, I mean, privilege, like, let's be real here. You're a you're a Persian genderqueer kid who grew up in North Carolina. I mean, there could be more privilege in terms of the way you grew up, and the same for me as the only ethnic kid in my area when I was growing up here. It wasn't. I didn't have it the same as rich white people did, and I didn't grow up in a rich family. But also, I think we all have a role to play, right, in this global revolution. And I don't think, to a certain extent, I think the people in the diaspora have a really important role to play in terms of helping, facilitating, enabling, supporting those inside Iran. We can be a lifeline. So I think as long as we're playing an important role, maybe that offsets or mitigates some of that survivor's guilt. Does that make sense?
It does. I think we just have to check ourselves and be completely honest. Why are we playing a role? If we're doing it for clout because we want to be seen, then have a seat, because there are people who are doing that. There's a trend, there's clicks, there's views, there's momentum, there's opportunities to speak to press. There's people who are taking that route. And there's people who are speaking because they've had their own agenda. They want to see Iran be a certain way, the Iran that they knew, and they're using this revolution as a way to insert their agendas and their beliefs. If you're doing it because you genuinely want Iran to be a better country, regardless of you even visiting or being there, then I think you truly are coming from a place of, genuine, as a genuine ally. And I'm going to say ally because I know this is like a hot topic. People were born in Iran, and live here, and you're still Iranian. I get it. But at the end of the day, here's the privilege. Even if Iran were to change, probably most of the people are going to, if they're not going to go back and forth, they're going to stay where they are because it's become their home. So I think we just have to be mindful that if we're a voice of Iran, let's be a voice of Iran and not a voice of what benefits us as individuals who are living in the diaspora.
But we also have a stake in it. And it's not just yes, it's self-interested, but it's the self-interest of wanting to see my family that I haven't been able to see for decades because I can't go to Iran. A German person or an Australian doesn't face that issue, right? That is something that is placed upon us because of the situation in Iran.
It's true, and that's a conversation that is definitely controversial because there's people who will disagree with that. There's people who say you'll have no problem if you go to Iran. There's people who say you will. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's just I'm going to just be blunt, it's a shit show over there. You don't know what to expect. I mean, the journalist that was in Turkey, it's like there's just so many like what ifs, and I don't think there's like a consistency of like who's at risk. I think anyone could be at risk. I think it's just that much of a shit show. It's like, but at the end of the day, yeah, you're right. Like seeing your family and the sentimental things, of course. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to express your opinion, but I think if we're going to say we're the voice of Iran, we're speaking on behalf of the Iranian people, then we have to make sure we really are speaking on behalf of the Iranian people. And then if that's not the case, you say, this is what I personally want. But I see not a lot, because at the end of the day, we all want Iran to be free, but I do see some people, like at the protests at the UN, I saw a lot of Pahlavi supporters who wanted to use this as a movement for, Reza Pahlavi, which there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, then say this is what I personally want, not this is what the people of Iran want. Because do we know what the people of Iran really want? I think the people of Iran, do they even know what they want? But I think they're in a position to speak as opposed to say we're speaking on behalf of the people of Iran.
I've certainly never used that language, speaking on behalf of the people of Iran. That's something I would never deign to do. But I do say I'll do what I can to support from the outside, whatever we can. I mean, ultimately, I think there seems to be, at least, or there should be, general agreement that self-determination for Iranian people inside Iran, that and for us to support that. It's interesting that you mentioned that this year has been something transformative for you. And by the way, I do want to get to the Persian Parade, but this is interesting to me because I noticed that since you were on, got like 100,000 more followers, and you were telling me when we were talking before a little while ago that a lot of those new followers are inside Iran. I'm curious what you have learned by interacting with them, and if you'll forgive the question, I mean it's meant with love. Why are they following you? Like what do you think the appeal has been that you've gained that many followers?
Yes, and I just want to be completely clear. We live in a social media world, and there's followers and there's bot followers. These are real followers. And I say that because it's wild to me that almost 100,000 followers have come from inside of Iran, a country where Instagram is not even legal, where they're using filter shikan. When I'm going to speak on the positive, my Farsi's become a lot better. Honey, I can have a conversation with you and cuss you out at the same time. So in Farsi very well. No, I'm just kidding. There's It first started out more serious, more me kind of like taking like baby steps and being afraid to speak to people in Iran because I'm so like out there, are they gonna judge me? Or are they gonna be like, what's going on with this character? Why is he even here? It all happened by accident, but I've learned a lot because I've realized there is now we're at a point having been, you know, immigrants or being born here in the States, we're now have a different culture of our own outside the people in Iran, and there's a huge cultural difference. Even when I speak to them, um, a lot of their opinions on just what we consider to be appropriate, what they don't consider to be appropriate there. A lot of their thoughts on how they want to live is so different than what we live, and a lot of the what's interesting? It's weird. We live in a free country, but with speech amongst like speaking every day, there's so much more freedom there amongst Iranian people because here we live in such a PC world, we're afraid to say things, but they speak so openly. There's not
That's
that
ironic.
fear of like going to offend someone. And yeah, you can be offended, but at the end of the day, it's like it's nice to know that the youth there really is not that much different than a lot of the kids here. It's like it's the only thing that's separating us right now is the fact that we have more freedom. So it's been fascinating to say why they're following me. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't follow me. I think I could be annoying at times, but I think the truth is maybe because I just speak really roque and openly in these lives. I say a lot of things that maybe Iranians find too respectable to say. My hair is down. I wear my makeup. I'm queer. I speak openly. And I speak very openly about a lot of things that are very taboo to Iranians. I think that's appealing to them to see somebody who lives here, but who's just willing to be critical and open, not of just my own country, but also like how I feel about things that are done in Iran. There's an exchange. They teach me things that I didn't think of before, and I teach them things of how things are done here. So it's been nice. It's been fun.
Tell me about the Persian Parade. It's taking place this Sunday in New York. It starts at Madison Avenue at 39th Street. So if you're listening to us in New York right now, here's your opportunity to be part of this. It's 11:30 a.m. It starts on Sunday. You took part last year. You were on this iconic Nowruz float. What can you tell us about this parade?
It's interesting. The parade is just like this really like amazing like cultural moment for Iranians. You have that conversation about where are all the Iranians. It's like show up on this day, show up Saturday, and you'll see where all the Iranians are. It's like where do all these people come from? Where do they live? Like it's like wild. It's like for one day Manhattan becomes like not Tehrangeles, like Terra York. I don't know. That's not cute, but whatever. It's like it's really wild because like where does everyone come from? It's like it's amazing. Last year I had the privilege of opening the parade on the float with my family for the first float out, and that was like really exciting. I was nervous because I have like these little small children like hanging on and waving these flags in the float. This year's going to be different because first of all I want to thank them for inviting me back. It's going to be woman life freedom is a theme, so some people might call it a protest, but it's not going to be the protests that we've seen. It's going to be a parade with a meaningful sentiment towards woman life freedom, and I'm going to be on the Khuzestan float to honor Kian. And I think it's going to be powerful just having his picture there, being a 10-year-old kid, and having my daughter, I said that because my daughter's 7, my daughter there who's 7, my 4-year-old and my 1-year-old on that float, just to show, again, that privilege we're talking about. Because I always say this, I'm like, when I see all these tragedies are happening around, like, it could be us. So just to have my kids there, on that float, that is going to be a really powerful image. And I'm just really honored to be able to be a part of this, also because like, they have like, we have a lot of like Iranian celebrities in this world, and like, Shadam Shapari is going to be there, and like people like that. But for them to also recognize a queer person like me who doesn't really have like the machine behind me, who's kind of doing my own thing, it really just that really shows how inclusive they are with this parade. And I think that's really wonderful. So yeah, it's an honor. It's going to be fabulous. It's going to be beautiful to look at, but it's going to be meaningful. And I think some of the most meaningful ways we can protest as people is through art, through music, through performance.
Nicole Ansari is going to be there. Shali Zomardi is going to be there. Shahram Shapar, as you say. I love that you're going to be on the Khuzestan float, which is close to my heart. It's interesting that you're bringing your kids. Tell me about that. Tell me about how your kids are processing this moment of being Iranian as kids who've grown up in America, who would have every reason to feel a detachment from being Iranian, and what they know of this uprising and what's been happening.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could lie to you and be like, yeah, I've had this amazing, like, thoughtful, like, conversation with people and parents, and I was able to really break this to my children. I haven't had that conversation with them yet. They're still very small. They recently are understanding the concept of even just death. So it is something that I want to have my children acknowledge, but I still haven't figured out the right way to have a conversation with them. They'd be like, hey, this kid behind you actually was killed by the government of the country I'm saying you should be proud of.
Hmm.
I don't know how to have that conversation with adults, let alone my child. I wish it was that easy. I wish it could be as easy as saying, hey, the two dogs we had this year passed away. I haven't figured that out. And
Do they see themselves as Persian? Do they know that they're about their Iranian background?
yeah, they do. Oh, very much so. Like, especially in the lives, my daughter will come and say salam. They're trying to learn Farsi. They watch little like instructional videos on YouTube to learn Farsi. We do a Nowruz spread every year. We do the Hafsin, we do Yalda. I mean, I'm doing more Persian stuff than my Iranian mother did with me growing up. I'm also the PTO president for my kids' school. Shout out to LCCS. But yeah, right, good taste. But there's actually a new Persian teacher there, and it was so exciting because the other day she got to meet Zara, and like she just gave Zara such a big hug, and Zara was like, Salam. This is the first time she was interacting with like another Persian like teacher like in her school. And I really try being an Iranian-American, especially since my partner, she's not Iranian, to make them proud and aware of what they are, because there is so much whitewashing in my life. We speak English at home. So I don't want to take away this opportunity for them to be a part of history in the making, but it's still a balancing act. How do I find a way to introduce the harsh realities of the culture that I'm just trying to get them to put their feet into as a swimming pool? So yeah, I haven't figured that out yet, Jian John, and hopefully I will. But as of now, if she may ask me who this kid is when she's on the float, and I don't know how I'm going to answer that question. I don't lie to my children, but I also am mindful of the fact that they are children. So yeah, I'm figuring it out.
Before I let you go, and I mean, I'd love to have you back for a more in-depth conversation once again. I mean, we wanted you on to talk about this Persian parade, but and once again, if you're in New York City, it's this Sunday. Kayvon would be part of it. A bunch of other well-known Iranians. Starts at 11:30 a.m. Madison Avenue at 39th Street. Just curious how you're feeling. There was such a well of enthusiasm and love and support and unity that happened in the fall around this rebirth of Iranian pride that we were feeling around the world and inside Iran too. I mean, to interview young people inside Iran who, I remember one young woman saying, I was never proud to be Iranian, but now I am just because of this uprising, etc. Are you feeling we're sort of in a lull now where the revolution hasn't, completed itself, as you said in the beginning? How are you feeling about the possibility of change in Iran and where we're at right now?
I mean, even before this revolution, I've always wanted to see Iran be a democracy. And I just want to clarify while the opportunity, like when I mentioned Pahlavi, like he wants the same thing. So I don't want people to think that I have an agenda against him or for him. I truly, like he speaks and everyone who's involved, I want to see Iran as a free democracy. And because this is called Roqe, and I am a Roqe person. Yeah, their momentum definitely is not the same, but I think at the beginning, just to hear like someone say Masa's name, like on the media here, just to hear like us be acknowledged was such a win, and even if like Iran is not like, I don't know why I'm getting emotional, isn't like a free country, it's like it would just it's just nice to be acknowledged, and I think that's what so many people want, is just to be acknowledged. And yeah, so there are wins in it, and people have to look at it that way. There are wins in it. Like I still think it's happening. I still think, I'm not losing hope. Yeah.
Maybe in the beginning it was I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but it was a lower bar. You're right. I mean, we felt that excitement of, wow, the world has woken up to our existence and doesn't think we're all bad people. And in fact, they're high-fiving us as we protest down the streets of our, Western cities, etc. But after a while, we want more, and we want to actually see change and not just have some visibility and recognition. So maybe that's what we're working through. It's a really good point about why it felt so powerful, I guess, in the beginning.
Yeah, I think especially for me, someone who was born here, like I was just vilified at a young age when I said I was Iranian. And to hear people understand that like a government doesn't represent the people, if that's even possible, that's nice. Because to be an Iranian person now doesn't mean to be, a part of the Iranian government. Whereas back then, people, you said you're Iranian, well, like you're this or that, go back. It's like there was an animosity. And now people are come to the understanding that just because you may come from a crappy regime, that doesn't mean that you're a crappy person just because you come from that culture. And that's nice, because I think people needed that. They needed to stop kind of sensationalizing and vilifying Iranian people, because they are just people like everyone else.
It's always good to see you. Thank you for doing this. Have fun on Sunday.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's Kayvon Zand. In New York, the Persian Parade, the annual Persian Parade, takes place this Sunday. Khosh baharatun. Those of you who get to go to that. If you're in the New York area, go on down. This is full time for Roqe for today. Our website, roqemedia.com. Thanks to the amazing team who put this show together. Super Parissa, Smart Pegah, Talented Anahita, Sound Person Louise, Savvy Roham. Thanks to Ahai Merta. Thank you to all of you out there for supporting us and sharing our content. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already on any of our platforms or all of our platforms. Find us on Instagram at Roqe Media. Find me on Instagram at Jian Gomeshi. Mizun Bashi.